Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Siddle Hot Takes. We're really excited to have you here today. And I'm going to turn it right over to Cheryl Lemke, our guest today.
Hello, everybody. If you haven't met me before, I'm the evaluator for CITL. It's just such fun to do that, but I'm here kind of in a different capacity today. The CITL director has asked me to share some data that is coming from another project that I do. I'm the state evaluator for the Utah State Board of Education and the digital teaching and learning program that they have been doing now for about 6 years, and they roll about $20 million out to their 100 plus school districts in the state for use with technology. And they've done some really interesting things with artificial intelligence. One of the things that they did from a systematic perspective is they actually added an AI director. It's a new position at the State Board of Education, which is kind of interesting. So what we've been doing is we've been collecting data, and what I'd like to do is just share with you a little bit about the data and the trends about how technology and actually how AI is being used in K-12. One of the reasons that I think Jamie and others are interested in that perspective is that faculty really need to know what's going on in the K-12 if they're going to prepare them to be out in the field and teaching in those schools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and just a few slides with you. Let me start at the beginning here. It looks like there we go. So this is, as I said, is called the Digital Teaching and Learning Program. And these are data that we collected this spring. And you can see on the screen that we have quite a number of surveys. We have a hundred district administrator from every one of the participants. We have over 700 school administrators and over 7,500 teachers. And so we've got a lot of data, and we've got a really good mix of middle and high school and elementary school. So what I thought I'd do is first of all, whoops, let me go to a slightly different one. What I thought I'd do is first of all, is just give you a sense of the vision that teachers and administrators have for AI in the K-12 environment. So I'm going to jump over here to a slide and let me view it so you can kind of see it. There we go. What we've done is we actually this is data that we asked, or a question that we asked both school administrators and teachers. And we asked them, what do you see the AI's role in pre-K 12 education? And then we came up with some ideas about what we were hearing. So a tutor, a collaborator, and a learning partner as a necessity to thrive in the world that they live in, as a new learning approach that potentially could diminish the levels of critical thinking, because we've been hearing a lot of concern about that, as a risk to privacy and confidentiality, as a catalyst to deeper learning, and as a disruptor to teaching and learning. And you can see that there's some trends here with last year and this year. We've been collecting data actually for 3 years, but only asked this question the last couple of years. And you can see it's interesting to see how much more positive the school administrators are than the teachers. They're in the trenches. They're dealing with, with students and working with AI every day. But I thought it was interesting that they actually did agree on the top two, as a tutor and collaborator and as a necessity. It's interesting that if you look at the third one for school administrators, it's really about engaged in deeper learning. But if you go over to the teachers, they're actually significant. They have significant numbers questioning critical thinking, questioning privacy and confidentiality, et cetera. So there's some real issues with that arena. Okay, so a couple others that I'd like to talk to you about. One is a policy. People are really interested in, do the K-12 schools have policies to cover AI? And so we've been asking this question again for 2 years now. And you can see we've asked, do you have a policy? And increasingly numbers do. They don't need it. They consider the fact that they don't need a new policy because their current policy on tech already covers AI. And you can see that there's a few here. Most of them, they're still under development and discussion. They're still kind of in that exploratory stage. And who can blame them since it's actually so new? The other thing that another thing that I'd like to talk to you about is just the whole usage in the classroom. So this is a slide, don't expect to read it, but it's a slide that really, I'll actually blow it up in just a second so you can kind of take a look at it. But what we've asked for about 3 years now is how are teachers and students actually using AI in the classroom? And so we generated a bunch of ideas that we thought might happen. And you can see the first year, we didn't ask as many questions. So you see all these blanks. The second year, we asked a few more. And here's the third year. And you can see that at the top is generating lesson plans, designing assignments, rubric development. And you can see that a significant number of these teachers are actually doing this. And when you think about the fact that we have over 7,000 teachers answering this question, you can see the numbers that are starting to mount in this particular area. So really interesting. Another one that we did is, oh, sorry, I actually blew that one up a little bit so you can kind of see. I took the top ones and you can kind of see what's there. Translating between languages is becoming big, and composing parent emails for clarity. People are starting to use that, et cetera. We also asked about student use, and we asked two different groups. We asked students and we asked teachers. So this one again is what we did, but I'd like to kind of zero in on something else, and that is a comparison of what students say and what teachers say. We don't actually collect data from like all the students in Utah, but we do offer it as an option to districts. And we've had 4 or 5 districts actually have over 15,000 students take the surveys that talk about the digital learning. And so what I've done here on this slide is I've compared it. The green one is students actually saying, yeah, I use that in this particular way. And the percentage of teachers who say, yes, my students use that in this particular way. And you can see that they don't necessarily match. That in this case, students are saying, are reporting a bit more use than teachers are saying for brainstorming and drafting, generating step-by-step problems like having AI work out math problems, for example, or coding. Receiving feedback is becoming a big one. And you can see that pretty much matches. And then it goes the other way down here, where teachers are actually over-reporting this, and students are saying, "Nah, I don't really use it quite as much as you might think." So interesting. And by the way, jump in if you have comments or questions as we go through this. Another thing I'd like to do is to actually share with you a few of the scenarios that teachers actually shared with us. This is an open-ended question with, over 7,500 teachers, and I've been going through them. It takes a long time to kind of read through them, but it's so worth it. And I am going to have AI code them for us, but I do some coding myself as well. So here's what I'd like to do is to have you react in the chat. So I'd like you to kind of read this elementary scenario. This is one, it's K through 6. And then I'd like you to do some commenting in the chat about what you thought was really value add, what you thought could have been improved perhaps, and maybe even some cautions about how to use this. And this one, as it says, that they're developing their narrative writing skills with AI. And so students draft their stories without AI, and then AI provides them real-time feedback. And teachers are actually creating chatbots within the AI so that they can actually put their rubrics into the chatbot, and then AI will actually provide feedback based on that rubric, which is really helpful. And a lot of teachers are actually saying that prior to that, they actually have AI help them develop the rubric. So it's really interesting. So any comments on that? And feel free, as I said, to put something into the chat bot if you're chat or the chat box if you're interested. Anything you liked on
Sure.
that one?
Cheryl, we had I think a couple weeks ago when Matt was on with Office Hours, he shared that he and I were both sharing how we had customized these chat bots to help support our teaching. And Matt was sharing, I think it was online when he was talking about it, that he kind of did something similar and it worked really well for him. So it's great to see teachers using training a chatbot and then having it provide students feedback. I wonder some of the legal issues around the students using it. I'm assuming it would be a district that has adopted uh, the tool and has brought it into their tool set as a district.
Exactly. And I might add that the State Board of Education, the Digital Teaching and Learning Division within the State Board has been very proactive. They went out for bid for AI licensing for the state a couple years ago, and they have three that are now licensed that they get pretty good pricing on, and that's Skillstruck and Magic AI, School AI, and then school AI. And so what the districts are doing is they're actually adopting that and putting it into play. And then from there they have kind of a closed garden so that any data that the student actually shares is captured within that district. And it's not like chatbot where it's out in the public. It stays within that district, which is really helpful.
I think this is we did a workshop earlier today with another organization, and one of the conversations we were having there was the idea that this is where I think we're going to start seeing a larger digital divide, something we've all been concerned about here at CITL for a long time. Because when we came into doing this at CITL, we were concerned about it because it was teachers that, as we know, Cheryl, you and I have known each other for some time, but we've been working on making sure that teachers understand the digital skills necessary to work on digital literacy and AI literacy now. And I think we're going to start seeing a divide between states and districts, SEAs and LEAs, if you will, that have gone forth and adopted these new tools and those who have not. And my concern is that we're going to create a bigger gap right now because we have states like Utah that's way out in front on this stuff. I mean, it's just so wonderful that you're doing this work and that they're thinking in the future. And then we have other states that have actually have still banned AI in their state. And I think we're going to start seeing this huge divide just grow even further. So it's wonderful to get this information.
Yeah, I agree with you, and there is a divide even within Utah, as proactive as they are. And I'm going to share kind of a comment. Maybe I should go do that now. Anyhow, I'll share a comment from that came out of the scenarios about that. And there are some teachers who don't want to use that. So let me see if this is a kindergarten one that I thought you might be interested in reading. Let me view that again so you can kind of see it. And they're using chatbots at an AI character chatbot that is built into one of the systems that they're working with. And you can see that an ELL student wrote a question in English, which the teacher typed in, and then the chatbot answered the student in their native language. I thought that was huge. I mean, to have that kind of language barrier removed in a lot of cases. And the teacher went on to talk about what the impact on that student was, that he or she had been called by their Americanized name. And when it went into the chatbot, it actually with the translation, it called them by their name. I don't know what language it was, so I'm not sure, but thought that was really intriguing.
Yeah, the ability to personalize. I think this, again, we've been talking about this as the idea that it's going to transform potentially the education system. And I think these are some of those early sort of anecdotal at best, but anecdotal cases to see where it's really making a difference.
Well, what we do is we actually ask over 7,000 teachers to write that small 3-sentence scenario and then tell us what content area it's in, and then tell us, did you use AI? Did you, did you use a spreadsheet, a database, et cetera? So what kind of technology we're using. So we're tracking that. And out of the 7,500 scenarios we got, 1,000 of them dealt with AI. And the directions were to share with us what you think is a successful use of technology in your environment. So this one is actually a middle school. I'm just going to share just a couple more using school AI space to guide their students in writing essays. This was a very common one. We have thousands of these as examples. And in this case, they're comparing and contrasting horror short stories. And then once the students get into the space, they get into the specific, the genres and talk about pacing, foreshadowing, et cetera, that is actually, again, built into that chatbot. So the chatbot is asking the students questions and allowing the students to ask questions in prompts. So they really get into this. And notice the comment at the end. This approach not only enhanced their analytic skills, but also made the essay writing process more exciting and interactive. So this is very common in terms of the English language arts. Here's here's one with environmental science that I thought was interesting. I'll just be quiet and let you read that one. One of the things that we did see from time to time in these scenarios is teachers saying, I let my students do this, but then I also have an error checking to make sure that it's accurate, and they actually have to go out and check. So there are teachers that are actually doing that part of it. This one is actually one that came in through the scenarios as well. It's interesting. It says, I reject the premise, because we asked them how are you using technology in an effective way? And they really are concerned. And I think there are a lot of people that are concerned about it. And we welcome this feedback because we do have to make sure that it's measured and balanced and that we train kids how to use it effectively. And then finally, there's one more. This one I thought was interesting. I wanted my students to explore the question, can technology show empathy? Because it's becoming so real. And so she said that by having that discussion with AI among her students, that they learned something new. She learned something new too. And finally, this one is Japanese, that this teacher actually has the students converse with a Japanese speaker, and she said it's just so real and so great, and the art, the translation is perfect. So thought I'd do that, and then a couple more I wanted to share. One was whether or not students are being taught. Let's see. So I thought you might be interested in this one. Are students being taught about AI? And so let me blow this one up a little bit. We asked teachers the question, do you agree with these following statements? The first one is, have they discussed with students how it's used in society? Have they led discussions about responsible ethical use, and have they taught students about the potential negative effects? And we give some examples of misinformation, violations of privacy, deep fake videos, et cetera. And it's interesting how small this blue area is, which is the agree and strongly agree. So we do have some teachers teaching it, but it's just on the early cusp of actually moving in that direction. And then finally, one last slide I thought you might be interested in, and that is what do teachers and administrators say are the biggest challenges with AI? And I just put that in here. Let view that one just in a second. And for teacher, we have what we did is the first year that this was out, and maybe even the second year, we had open-ended questions, and then we codified those open-ended questions into a drop-down. So you can see that some of them are similar. But teachers AI, teachers challenge is time to learn, helping students to see it as a learning partner rather than, plagiarism, which they're very concerned about. And then addressing plagiarism because it is there. And then the administrators helping students to see AI as a learning partner. So they see the same thing, crafting policies that empower, yet make sure that kids still think critically, and then managing the changes that AI is bringing to K-12. And I mentioned to Jamie last week that I just saw a paper come out of New Zealand that had some data on the fact that there's a cognitive decline for those that actually offload to AI and to other things and don't develop that working memory. I mean, critical thinking happens when you have multiple things in your working memory. And if you never ingest those and get those into your memory, it's very hard to have that deep analysis there. So there is some concern with that. So let me stop with that and see, and just open it up for conversation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, of course, we did talk about this because we have Yarn and others on the team here that are actually doing research in that area of cognition, around cognition and AI. But the other thing that captures my attention here, and we've not brought this up in our office hours, but we also gather needs assessment data here at CITL. And I think some of these challenges that we're seeing here align quite nicely with the data that we're also gathering in higher education teacher preparation, personnel preparation, and the work that needs to go on. So I think this is great to pull all this together. So I know we want to end the recording period of this and keep it, and then open it up to everyone else. So I guess I can be the one to sign off today. Thanks for everyone for attending the office hours recording. For those of us who are still on office hours, we're going to open it up to the community, but we're going to stop the recording so not everyone has to be recorded and shown on YouTube. But look forward to having people back. If you haven't liked the video and you haven't followed CITL, please like it and give us a follow.